This industry especially needs to stop making excuses that we don't have time. People expect tradies and builders to show up late. Very bad reputation to have. Time is the most valuable thing that we all have in our lives. I was going to wrap this podcast up, but there's actually so much to talk about when it comes to time. G'day guys, and welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We are back in the shed today for another single or individual podcast. So these ones have been going really well. Been getting a lot of feedback. Today I want to talk to you about time. I talk about it a lot, being the number one excuse that a lot of people talk about and a lot of people use, including myself back in the day. But today's podcast is really about, I guess, learning to respect other people's time. Because if you can't respect other people's time, you're going to find it very difficult to appreciate your own time. And what I mean by that is what I see happening in the building industry, and look, the construction industry is very well known for it. Like, people expect tradies and builders to show up late. And it's not a bad, it's a very bad reputation to have, because we need to turn that around. And my whole thing doing this podcast is all about lifting the professionalism of the construction industry, creating a new industry. And one of the easiest and simplest things we can do to be treated as professionals is show up on time or early. And vice versa, if you are running a little bit late or something comes up and you can't make it on time, respect the person or people enough to call them and give them notice, or let them know that it needs to be cancelled or rescheduled or whatever, before they go wasting time traveling to you or preparing for you and all those types of things. So I'll put my hand up. Like, I was bad at this for a long time, and it's something that I'm consciously thinking about all the time now, because I tend to always be on time, which in reality, if you're on time, you're late. And it's something that I'm consciously thinking about, is like reworking my schedule. Instead of putting my meetings in for a certain time, put them in for 15 minutes earlier so that I'm always there a little bit earlier. Like, I'm so focused on my schedule now that if a meeting's at 9 o'clock, I show up at 9 o'clock, which is I believe isn't good enough. I need to be there early. Because early is actually being on time. Like, you want to show up, you want to show people respect, you want to get there, you want to have a little bit of an introduction before your meeting's actually meant to start. But we've found, it's funny because something as simple as respecting people's time and controlling your time I believe shows a lot about a person or an individual. Because if you get someone that's just constantly late, constantly having to reschedule things, doesn't show up on time, or like these types of things, you can generally tell how someone's life is based on that. And we see it all the time with this podcast. We get so many people reaching out to us, and we reach out to a lot of people to get you the incredible guests that we have on this podcast. And there is so many people that we have given too many chances to come back on the podcast, and literally, like, we've had people that literally we're sitting down waiting, expecting them to show up to record a podcast, and we end up following up and they're like, oh shit, I completely forgot about it. Like, and that's just not acceptable. Like, we send everybody meeting invites, meeting requests. They accept the meeting invite. Shay, my producer, is all over it. Like, he follows them up multiple times, like 2 weeks out, 1 week out. And like, if we're a little bit sus, he'll even follow them up the day before and even the morning of the podcast. So they literally have no excuses. Like, we go out of our way, text messages, emails, phone calls, and all those types of things. And it's funny because when I see the people that have done that to us on this podcast, even not knowing them personally, but just seeing how things, I guess, unfold on their social media, it's a good reflection of how all the other areas of their life are. So the whole reason of talking about this today and I guess being so open about it on this podcast is not because we're annoyed about it and we want to, I guess, shame people, like we're not mentioning anyone. I want to talk about it because I want people to understand that something as simple as respecting people's time and controlling your time flows through your entire life. Shay was just talking about it with me this morning and saying how much he's seen from Camille and I and the way we're scheduled, how much it's improved his life, because he now has a big schedule on the wall in his garage. When people ring him up, they ask him to do things, he can just look at the schedule and you can make an answer straight away, like, oh, sorry, I'm booked out that day, or no, I can't make it, or this is the times that I can do it. It makes life so incredibly easy when you have a detailed schedule of your personal life. And it's something we definitely talk about a lot with our members in Live Like Build. I bang on about it all the time, my socials, about being so planned out. And it's unbelievable because when you start scheduling things, and it doesn't have to be difficult. Like we use the free Google Calendar. It's on my phone, it's on my iPad, it's on my PC. Like, it's right there in front of me. Like, anytime if I'm having a meeting on site, if a client's asking me something, I can literally just open my schedule up and tell them the next time that I'm going to be available to organise another meeting, or to meet them again, or to drop something off. Like, it just makes life so easy. That's probably the biggest thing. Like, life becomes easy because you can actually make informed decisions. But number two, you're not wasting people's time. Like, I know back in the day before I had a schedule, I didn't respect people's time, because there was lots of times where I would be having a site meeting, whether a trade or a client, and then just straight off the bat saying, oh yeah, no worries, I can meet you next Tuesday, 9:30, whatever. Might have scribbled it in my diary, or 9 times out of 10 didn't remember it, and then the following Tuesday comes up and then you're getting a phone call, hey, it's 9:30, I'm just wondering if you're turning up to this meeting. And I'm like, holy shit, sorry mate, completely forgot about it, I'm tied up on another job, can't get there. And I know this is going to resonate so much with so many builders and tradies, or just people in general, because the reality is this is how most people operate. They're just floating through life day to day, no schedule, no routine, nothing to check in, and they're simply just making promises to people that they will never be able to follow through on, which is not only letting those people down, but more than anything, they're letting themselves down. So this is only a little short and sweet podcast, this one, but if you can take anything away from this podcast, please, if you don't have one already, go and make sure you've got the free Google Calendar app on your phone and start putting everything in there. Don't write it down in your diary. Don't think you'll try and remember it. Don't have little post-it notes on your desk or in your truck or whatever the case may be. Simply get a calendar that every single time someone asks or requests to meet you, you lock it in. Every time you tell someone that you're going to meet them, you lock it in. And then go to the next level from that and put all your personal time in there. Put when you want to pick the kids up from school, when you want to drop the kids off, when you want to have date nights. Like, just keep growing on it. And you won't believe how much more structured your life will be. You won't believe how much more you'll get done. You won't believe how many more things fall into place. And you won't believe how much more, and this is a huge one, you won't believe how much more you actually get respected. If a client reaches out to you, or you get a new inquiry and you go back to them, like you look up your schedule and you go back to them and say, thanks so much for reaching out. My next availability is this, this, and this. And so what I like to do in those situations is I will tentatively put them in my schedule. So even though the other person hasn't confirmed or committed, I know that time's locked out in my schedule. And Camille and I will always tell the person that we're getting back to please respond to us within 24 to 48 hours, because our schedules are full and there's other people that we can meet in those time frames. So, and that way, if we don't hear back from people, to us, that's just, we can reschedule that time. We can book another meeting in that time. And then it's very easy for us to go back to someone and go, oh, look, we're really sorry. You never got back to us in 24 to 48 hours. We've now filled that spot. Here's my next availability. So you can see how this all starts to fall into place. I was going to wrap this podcast up, but there's actually so much to talk about when it comes to time. Like, people don't understand the power of time. Like, time is the most valuable thing that we all have in our lives. And yet so many of us just throw it out the window. And not only are we not respecting other people's time, we're not respecting our own time. So I'll just go on and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things that I do to really knuckle down on my time. So, for example, we have weekly site meetings with all of our clients on our projects. So part of our contractual obligations is we tell the clients, so I'll have multiple weekly site meetings on because we got multiple jobs running all the time. I will tell the clients 2 or 3 available times during a week that we can meet them, knowing that that will be locked in every week for the length of their project. And they have to come back to us and confirm one of them. As soon as that's confirmed, myself, my site supervisor, Camille in the office, and all parties involved, so generally it's the husband and wife, get sent a meeting invite for the same time, the same day, every week for the period of that job. It is unbelievable how something like that buys you so much time, because if back in the old days, what used to happen was I'd want to meet the client, and I'd have to ring them up and say, hey, I just wouldn't mind meeting on site. I can meet you this time. They'd be like, oh yeah, hang on, I'll have to check with my wife. I'll have to check with my husband. And before you know it, 10 phone calls, 12 phone calls later, a day might have passed and you still haven't locked in a meeting, and you're trying to organise other things, and it just becomes a whole shit fight to organise one meeting. That's one meeting on a project. If you're doing that, if that's how you're operating every single time that you're trying to organise meetings on a project, that is a huge reason why you have no time, because you're wasting so much of it just trying to lock in times and coordinate everybody. Whereas if you lock in a weekly site meeting, same time, same day, every single week for the length of the project, you can schedule all your rough-in walkthroughs, your window site measures, whatever the case may be. You can actually schedule your job program around those weekly site meetings, and you do not have to check in with anyone, because you know that yourself and the clients are always going to be there that time, that day, every single week. And we actually have it written into our, we have a document that we give all of our clients, again, as part of our contractual obligations, that basically we call it our expectations of working with Pearce Constructions. And one of those expectations is if either party cannot attend a meeting, they are to inform the other party within 24 hours. And look, occasionally things come up, people might be sick, something's happening with kids or whatever. And that's why in my business, we always have myself and my supervisor, because if for any reason him or I can't both make a meeting, there is always one of us there to take meeting minutes and keep the process going of the job. But it's just courtesy to let people know if something's come up and someone can't attend a meeting. So the other thing that is really important once you start personal scheduling and respecting other people's time and your time is getting all your personal affairs into place. So everything that you personally want to do, family holidays, days off, long weekends, all those types of things, you've probably heard me talk about before if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time. But when you get all your priorities in there, it then clearly identifies to you the other days and the other times that you have to fit business and other meetings and stuff in. And another thing we were talking about today with Shay was when you, like, on top of this, the best thing that, like, something I highly recommend is getting a 12-month calendar. Get a 12-month calendar. I've got one that actually sits off to my left-hand side in my office. It's on the wall, and I can, like, if I'm on the phone or something's coming up, I can just glance at that, and I know every event that Live Life Build's having, every Zoom call that Live Life Build's having, every school holidays, every long weekend, every family vacation, all those types of things are right there in front of me. And not only is it powerful because I can, if people are wanting to meet me or lock things in or whatever, I can very quickly on a phone call glance at that and give them an answer, and we can schedule a time that's not going to conflict with anything else. But the other incredibly valuable thing is by glancing at that on a daily basis and seeing what's locked in there, it shows me how much time is left to fit everything else in, which makes me prioritize what I'm doing and not waste time. And yeah, when you start doing something as simple as that, you'll so quickly, you won't believe how much more time you get, how much more you value your time. Yeah, it's incredible. So look, I'll wrap this podcast up because I could go on about this all day. This industry especially needs to stop making excuses that we don't have time, because the reality is we all have shitloads of time, we just don't use it appropriately, and we waste a lot of time meeting people, doing things that aren't adding any value to ourselves, our lives, or our goals. Guys, I hope that's helped you out. Look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Make sure you share and comment, and we'll see you on the next one.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelifebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.